The setup right now is still becoming more supportive for a domestic U.S. rally here, at least in the short term. Again, doesn't mean a return to the bull market, but it looks like, for the most part, that this recent correction and all evidence pointing that is over here. Here's what you need to know before the bell this morning. Earnings will be starting in about 2 weeks. One thing that may be allowing for higher earnings, earnings beating expectations, has been this rather sharp decline in the U.S. dollar. And that's, has been part and parcel of this outperformance in emerging markets and international markets versus the U.S. We talked about this recently, the outflows into foreign assets, taking away from the dollar. The dollar is bottoming here and triggering a buy signal here. So we should start to see some relative strength in the dollar. That's going to help support asset prices in particular. We'll see potentially a reversal of emerging markets and international back into the U.S. In fact, again, we have seen a lot of this outperformance here as of late coincides exactly with this decline in the dollar. Very overbought here, very extended on multiple means, getting a trigger, starting to trigger a sell signal here on international stocks. That's going to likely be exacerbated here if this dollar starts to rally. And again, there's some decent indication here that we're going to start to see some money flows back into the U.S. So this is probably a good time to start thinking about a transition. If you're heavy overweight international, look to start adding some domestic exposure, reducing your international position in your portfolio. But watch this buy signal. If we can get above the 200-day moving average, that probably is going to set up the dollar for at least a decent rally here short term. Again, not overbought yet, decently oversold on multiple levels. Outside of that, also volatility has been one of the big, the big focuses. And we had this big spike in volatility during that 10% decline. Now, I say this big spike in volatility, it was never a volatile increase in the markets, right? So if we go back to that previous kind of correction we had this very sharp spike. This was back in December, and this was kind of that initial concern in the markets over the Fed. And the Fed pausing rate hikes and talking about, they're expecting fewer rate cuts. That caused this really big spike in the market at that Fed meeting. This is the type of volatility you want. This was a very kind of normal increase in volatility during that sell-off. Nothing dramatic, nothing kind of shocking the markets. We've now almost completely reversed that entire spike. The volatility index now back below 20 as well. That's kind of supportive here for the markets also near term. So again, as we start to see volatility decrease, get to see a rally in the dollar potentially, that should help domestic assets begin to perform a bit better. And we've seen that performance here over the last couple of days, particularly back in the Mag 7, which were a lot more beaten up than the overall market. We're starting to see some rotation in the market as well. We had a lot of money kind of hiding out in that value index sector of the markets. That's beginning to rotate over the last couple of days back into the mega cap Mag 7 stocks in particular. Those have been performing better. But outside of that, VIX is getting oversold here. So again, we have some more down, potentially a little bit more volatility decline, but probably going to start to stabilize on volatility here in the short term, at least in the markets. But again, the setup right now is still becoming more supportive for a domestic U.S. rally here, at least in the short term. Again, doesn't mean a return to the bull market, but it looks like, for the most part, that this recent correction and all evidence pointing that is over here. So again, continue to maintain your asset allocation, but use rallies, rebalance risk, raise cash, do what you need to do to get your portfolio in line. As I said yesterday, I do not suspect the volatility we've seen recently is gone. But again, we'll just have to navigate this as we go. That's what you need to know before the bell this morning.